And then we just bring them in the house and, whoops. Hey everybody, it's Josie with Ozark Mountain Goats. Today Jim and I are heading into the garden to pick some green tomatoes. Now, you know, fall is well underway and the tomato season is really winding down. So we decided to show you guys a couple of ways that you can preserve green tomatoes when you know that your tomato plants are about done for, or maybe you've got a frost coming and you want to try to save those last few tomatoes that are on the vine. So we're going to head out to the garden and get some picked, and when we get back we're going to show you how we pickle green tomatoes. So a single batch recipe calls for about 5 pounds of green tomatoes, and I've got over 10 pounds here, and I'm hoping that I'll have enough. If not, I'll run out the garden and see if I can scrounge up a few more. But anyway, the first thing that you're going to want to do is cut the ends off. Now we've tried this 2 different ways. We've tried slicing the tomatoes and we've also tried chunking them up. And actually I like them better chunked. So that's what I'm going to do today. I think it's easier to pack them in the jar, and I also think it's easier to eat them if you cut them into more bite-sized pieces. So what you want to do is just start cutting your green tomatoes into chunky pieces and get them in your bowl here. So you can see what I've got. Not too big, but big enough. So I got my tomatoes all cut up and I weighed them again, and I did end up with just over 10 pounds. So I think that should be enough to do my double batch. And now you just want to get your onions cut up. Remove the skin, outer skin obviously, and then cut them in half, and from there cut them into maybe 1/4-inch slices or so, however you want to do it, so that you can pack them easily into your jars. And all of this will get covered with your salt brine. I'm not really sure of the purpose of the salt brine, but I think it's to help pull out some of the water from the tomatoes so that they stay a little bit crunchier. My tomatoes and onions are all cut up, so I think I'm going to put them in this stock pot here. This is really too full to try to toss them and evenly coat them, so I'll have, I think, more room if I put them in here. Anyway, because I'm doing a double batch, I've got 2/3 cup pickling salt. So I'm going to begin adding these to this stock pot and then add a little salt as I go. Okay, got them all in there. I'm just going to use my hands and kind of gently toss them so I can get that salt really well incorporated. Now if you're doing these the day ahead, all you really need to do is just cover them and put them in the refrigerator. Because I'm going to process mine today, I am going to put a few cups of ice on top of this, and then in 4 or 5 hours I'll come back and we'll get to processing them. That ought to do it. Wanted to take a minute and just tell you another really quick way to preserve your green tomatoes into the winter. If Jim and I know that there's a frost coming, you know, we're at the end of the tomato season, we'll go ahead and pick all the green tomatoes that are on the vine. And we bring them in the house and simply wrap them up in newspaper. Super easy, it just takes a couple of minutes, and then we set them aside and they'll go inside of a box or a tub or something, and then we'll take them to the basement. And then over the next few weeks, we'll kind of keep an eye on them, maybe unwrap one every so often and see how they're ripening. Now this is going to slow the ripening process, so depending on how many we have, we can be getting actually homegrown tomatoes well into winter and not have to buy them at the grocery store. So if you weren't aware of that little trick, you can use it to prolong the harvest of your tomatoes and, you know, use them well into the winter. Okay, I'm back. It's 4 hours later and I'm going to get my brine started. I think I'm going to do this before I actually rinse the tomatoes and onions off so that I can get this heated up. Into this pot, I've already poured 4 cups of apple cider vinegar. I'm adding 2 more cups because I am doubling the recipe, so I need 6 cups total. In here, I've got 2 teaspoons of turmeric, 2 teaspoons of celery seed, and 2 tablespoons of mustard seed. And then the last part of this brine is sugar, and I've got 3 3/4 cups sugar. This is a simple brine. It's very basic, and the finished product is actually similar to a bread and butter pickle, but if you wanted to spice things up some, you could definitely. You could add dill to this, you could add garlic, you could add peppercorns, clove, any of those things, or just use your typical pickling spice blend would be okay too. But we are going with just your basic blend, and so I'm going to bring this up to a boil, and while that happens I'm going to get my tomatoes and onions rinsed off. I'm going to rinse a little bit at a time in cold water and then put it in the other colander. Okay, I've got these all rinsed, and you can just pitch that salt water. You don't need that anymore in the recipe. Okay, my brine has reached a boil, so I'm going to go ahead and start filling my jars. To make it easier, if you've got a wide mouth funnel, you might want to use that, but just pack it on in there pretty well, and then to each jar you'll be adding the brine. Hopefully you'll get a variety of tomatoes and onions. And another thing I wanted to mention that you can add, which really makes the jar pretty and tastes good too, is you could add slices of red bell pepper or yellow or anything like that, orange, that would really give it some extra color. Plus they taste really good pickled. Or you could add in some strips of red jalapeno pepper or something like that to give it a little extra zip. Anyway, I'm going to finish packing these jars, and when I come back we'll top them up with the brine mixture. Okay, I packed these pretty tightly and I have still got a little bit left. I could probably get at least another pint out of it, but I did have over 10 pounds, probably closer to 11, so that's probably why I've got the extra. Anyway, I am going to begin topping these jars up, and you'll want to use your plastic knife and go around the edges and remove any air bubbles. All the seeds are floating on the surface, so I'm going to spread it out and then go back and top with just the regular brine mixture. Now you just want to take your plastic spoon and go around the edges of all your jars and remove any air bubbles. And then if there's still room for more brine, you can top it up. Jim and I first discovered pickled green tomatoes at our favorite fish house in Mountain Home, Arkansas. And we've been going there for about 20 years, and they are just delicious. Okay, those look pretty good. Now you got to clean off your rims, and this is a pretty sticky brine with all the sugar that's in it, so you want to make sure you get them cleaned off well so that you get a good seal on your jars. Alright, next comes the lids and rings. You want to make sure your rings are fingertip tight. And I did a few jelly jars because these are kind of fun to give away. More ring. All right, into the canner they go. If I didn't mention it, this is just a hot water bath, so you need to make sure your jars are sterile. Anyway, these are going to process for 15 minutes, and when we come back, I'll finish up these last few jelly jars. Okay, first batch is done. We're going to get them out and get these last few half pints in. They're a pretty color. All right, I'm going to have to add some water to that because your jars need to be covered by about 1 inch of water, and I don't have as many in this batch. So anyway, I'll get them topped up and get them processed, and when we come back, we'll take a look at our final product. Okay, those really are pretty. As soon as they cool off, they'll be going down to our storage room in the basement, and we'll be able to try them in maybe 2 or 3 weeks or so. So if you've got tomatoes that are just about to the end of the growing season at your place, and maybe you've got a frost coming and you want to do something with those green tomatoes, try this. It's really good. I think you'll like it. If you like pickles at all, you should like this. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please be sure to like us, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and we will catch you later.